Coming up, Jaden Knockerboard defies gravity. The Leeds Rhinos celebrate a win for Rob Borrow, and the IRL chairman stops by to discuss the international game. Yes, hello, and welcome to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with Mark Hendry, I am Connor Marcells, and today, to start off your Betfred Super League round 20, 21, and 22 debrief, we are joined by the chairman of the International Rugby League, Mr. Troy Grant. How are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, you're most welcome.
Not a problem at all. All right. Now, of course, the biggest news story that had been going around in rugby league circles was, of course, the postponement of the Rugby League World Cup until 2022. I just want to ask, what was your initial reaction as chairman of the IRL when you heard that both Australia and New Zealand withdrew from the World Cup initially?
Look, very, very disappointed. Obviously, COVID pandemic has been a challenge for all sports internationally for some time. Obviously, the Euros and the Olympics had to be postponed, so this isn't without precedent, but we thought we were well on the way to giving every nation comfort that the biosecurity measures were in place to hold a successful and safe tournament for the players and all those participating. And unfortunately, two of the nations had advice to the contrary, and their withdrawal was disappointing, but we're now looking forward and focusing towards the future to run the best ever Rugby League World Cup, and a very successful one.
I'm sort of the opinion that what you're suggesting is there was no hint of, say, misinformation that, say, one side of the world was presenting to its audience in contrast to the other side of the world?
Oh, look, there's no doubt that the way that the COVID pandemic is being managed in the Northern Hemisphere is completely different to how it's being managed in the Southern Hemisphere. So that presented its own challenges in relation to repatriation after the tournament across many Pacific nations and Australia itself. But we thought we had all that covered off on, and that we were making good progress with the member nations to get the players back after the World Cup. But just the way that the COVID pandemic's been managed here, it takes a lot less cases for people to be forced into isolation, which the players are currently in because of biosecurity bubbles in Queensland. The whole competition's been relocated, so that added additional pressures on the member nations, which they didn't believe they were able to meet their workplace obligations by participating in that environment. And the decision was made by them, and unfortunately, it came at a disappointing time because we had certainly made some progress and were very focused on delivering a World Cup this year, but that's not to be. So the focus now shifts to next year, and all nations are on board, and we look forward to the announcement of the tournament dates being made this week.
There was discussion when it was initially discussed that Australia and New Zealand were going to withdraw. There was talk that they could have staged a quote-unquote rebel test match, and that the World Cup organising committee was going to threaten a legal injunction if that was to happen, if, of course, the World Cup went on this year. What sort of authority would the IRL have on this matter when it comes to, say, throwing a legal injunction of what would be defined as a rebel test match in that hypothetical scenario?
Yeah, look, it was hypothetical. The only matches that were discussed were the pre-arranged trial matches. But obviously, once the World Cup was postponed, any internationals that would occur in the Southern Hemisphere would not be a great look, particularly if there was none occurring in the Northern Hemisphere because of the withdrawals. But I think the COVID pandemic situation in Australia at the moment is that any internationals this year are highly unlikely, even if they wanted to be. But so far as test matches occurring, they need to come to the IRL to be sanctioned as test matches. Whether that would have happened or not would have been a matter for the board. I believe probably highly unlikely. I know the Pacific Island nations weren't keen to participate. But yes, regarding any legal action or injunctions, it's very hard to talk on a hypothetical situation, but certainly the sanctioning of any test matches is a matter for the IRL board.
So with the World Cup now postponed till the end of next year, what sort of impact will that have on the game, internationally speaking?
Look, it's just disappointing that it'll essentially be 2 years since elite internationals have been played. We're starting to get some European B and D matches played in coming weeks, which is really exciting, and it's great to have some matches underway. I know there's been some wheelchair competition as well that's also occurred in this time, but the quicker we can get things back to as normal as possible and start playing internationals again, the better. In the 2000s, we were having about 10 internationals per annum, which wasn't enough. That moved up to 40 internationals, and we were starting to get some real momentum, especially with the rise of Tonga, who were challenging the Kangaroos, Kiwis, and Great Britain teams and defeated them all. That was really starting to help us get a lot more momentum for the competitions. Our calendar is in development, was nearing completion, so that'll make sure the content into the future will be more plentiful, will be more meaningful, and be more competitive. And the momentum from the World Cup will hopefully help garner greater interest in that, and we can really use that momentum to realise the potential that International Rugby League's had for a long time that hasn't been realised to date.
I understand that England and France are due to stage a test match at the end of the Super League season as it currently stands. Has there been an approach from the RFL or French Rugby League about getting this test match sanctioned?
Yeah, that's body of work that's in progress. It hasn't quite been finalised, but I'm aware of the efforts that are being made there, and it's been strongly encouraged by myself and the IRL board. And yeah, we look forward to seeing France and England battle it out. And France has got a real kick on recently, obviously top of the table in the Super League, and also the next tier as well with Toulouse and Catalan. So there's a real renewed enthusiasm for rugby league in France, and with our work trying to secure the World Cup for 25 in France, it's a great opportunity to showcase the game in action for those considering our bid.
As well as the inclusion of Trent Robertson as the French director of rugby. Now, you talked about the rise of Tonga as an example of the development of the international game. Where should the sport, with the IRL leading this push, where should it focus in its terms of expanding and developing the game on an international scale?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's probably three clear strategies that we have, and that's the growth of women's and nines rugby league, and our vision to get included into the Olympics for wheelchair and nines. That's certainly a focus, and that's where we'll be looking to maximise those opportunities, and using those forms of the game to showcase how great the game is, and use that as a vehicle to go to new frontiers. We want to make Europe stronger. In the Southern Hemisphere, the Oceania Cup and the Pacific nations, the strength of those nations has absolutely evolved, and the professionalism has absolutely evolved in the last 5 to 6 years. And I want to see that growth replicated in the Northern Hemisphere. We have the European Championships, which is terrific as they're qualifiers for our major tournament in the World Cup. But I want some standalone competition for European nations to work towards reaching the pinnacle of rugby league using that platform as well. And North America is obviously in our sights. The market's massive over there. There's been a number of false starts, so a professional league in North America and hopefully France itself are certainly on the horizon in our thinking.
Just getting back onto that question of the United States, there has seemingly, back in June, that there was a standoff between the North America Rugby League Association for their professional competition and the established United States of America Rugby League Board. How does the IRL determine who is the governing body of the game, and what sort of process goes into that?
Yeah, look, there's a very formalised process, and the USARL are the governing body of the game in America, in North America. So they're the member nation of the IRL. But they're very open. I met with both them and the professional league. What we were aiming to get there is that the two coexisted and complemented each other, not one took over the other. So there's a little bit of a fractious relationship amongst some members of both those bodies at the moment, which we hope is resolved, because we want one strong body running a rugby league in the US, both at an amateur community level as well as a professional level. And like it occurs in Australia, for example, we have many community-based competitions, but there's pathways from that right through to the elite professional NRL competition, and that's for men and women. And that's the model that we hope is replicated across the world. It certainly occurs in the UK, as we know, occurs in France, for example. So I think that's the best model to help sustain and grow the game going forward. So rather than different parties going off trying to implement their own vision, is to have a shared vision and a complementary vision for the amateur and professional game.
Oh, of course, understandable. Now, there has been talk of India recently developing into rugby league with some help from the former High Commissioner Barry O'Farrell. How would the IRL determine India's membership status, for example, when it comes to them seeking admission to the IRL? What sort of criteria would they need to meet in order to be recognised as a member of the International Rugby League community?
Yeah, well, there's quite a bit to it. It's all available on our websites, IRL, the www.irl.sport, and all the information's available for member nations on how to achieve membership. And we have observer membership, we have affiliate and full membership. So there's different tiers, and what you require at each of those tiers is slightly different. But it's about structuring domestic competitions, having a proper constitution and governance arrangements in place, and then you're supported by receiving member grants. And what we've got to get better at is the technical support for rules, coaching, and that sort of resource. So, yeah, absolutely, India's membership would be absolutely welcomed. I used to work with Barry O'Farrell pretty closely, so we exchange a lot of information about what's happening in India, and it's exciting. And given the size of the population, they can't all play cricket, and there's plenty of great athletes over there. So the more we can get into rugby league, and again, whether it's in the nines format, whether it's also women wheelchair, there's plenty of opportunity, as well as the 13-a-side game for people to play and participate. And any of those efforts will be strongly encouraged by the IRL and the Asia Pacific Confederation.
That's very true. Now, getting back onto Asia Pacific, there's been a lot of internal rumbling concerning the Tonga Rugby League board situation and their membership. What is the latest can you give to that situation involving Tonga?
Yeah, sure. So Tonga operated and really took leaps and bounds forward when they became the invitational team. That's when they defeated the Kangaroos in their last match. And it was disappointing that there was the fallout in relation to the member body over there, and some personalities that caused that division, and their behaviour unfortunately led to their expulsion. We went through a process, and what we've got currently is what we call an interim management group, and their sole task is making sure that Tonga is ready and have the government's backing financially to participate in the Rugby League World Cup. So that arrangement is in place, but also the foundations working with the clubs of Tonga and key representative bodies over there who they've nominated. Once the World Cup arrangements are all locked away, then we look forward to readmitting the new Tongan national representative body as a member back into the IRL family.
I see. And finally, from me, what is the future strategic plan for the international game after the 2022 Rugby League World Cup?
The number one key thing is our calendar, and making sure that calendar offers us the commercial opportunities to garner revenue that we can reinvest into the game. So we're hopeful that the calendar, after its readjustment with the postponed World Cup, will be ready before the end of the year. That'll be out there, and that'll show a pathway for all our members on where and how they're going to get some really well thought out international content and competition, and how they can also pathway to continual improvement to play at higher and higher level of international fixtures. So that brings back a few of the beloved fixtures such as Kangaroo Tours and Lions Tours and Kiwi Tours. It also includes opportunities for nations, the second-tier nations like Pacific Island nations, to potentially tour into Europe and help bolster more international activity in France and throughout Europe as well. And I think we're stronger together. So the more that we can showcase the game across the world, the better off we will be. So the calendar will underpin a lot of that activity. A successful World Cup in 22 will only help us, again, keep that momentum running into hopefully France 25. And our vision then is for North America in 29. We've got the World Nines in 2023, a World Cup of Nines to run as well. So there's plenty of international action coming up. The hope is obviously that the pandemic reduces in its impact and the costs and the challenges about moving people around the globe to participate in sport, because it's become a very expensive exercise as well as a very difficult logistical one. We hope that is better contained and we can get back into travelling again and showcasing rugby league right across the world.
Oh, but of course. Now, Mark, I'll invite you onto the floor. I know you've been a passenger for probably the last 20 minutes, so we're not going to leave you out here, mate. If you've got a couple of questions for the chairman, fire them away.
Yes, I do. Welcome, Troy Green, as well. Honour to have you on this
show.
Do you think that, obviously, the Olympics, do you think that rugby league should be a part of it? And if so, are you hoping it happens before it comes to Australia in 2032?
Without doubt, I think that Rugby League Nines can be a part of the Olympics. There's a process that you have to meet IOC requirements, and we're working very closely, and we have been for some time, on making sure that our sport meets all those requirements, and that's in relation to equity, officiating rules, and a whole host of requirements, and we're well advanced and well on the way to achieving that. As part of a pathway, we've got plans to participate in the Pacific Games, and we're sounding out opportunities in North American Games and the Asian Games as well to get more competition in IOC-related events to prove up our case for inclusion. 2032 in Brisbane is the most logical target, given that it's in Brisbane and Queensland is very much a rugby league state, and we would hope that we would look upon favourably. And we believe that we can coexist with the rugby sevens in the tournament. There's many different disciplines of rowing or cycling or swimming or running events, and shooting events and all sorts of sports that are currently in the Olympics. So I don't believe there's any inhibition or restrictions on having two types of rugby at the Olympics either. So if we can achieve that before 2032, that would be wonderful. But 2032 is probably, in all reality, our greatest opportunity.
Now, it would be very, very good to see him in the Olympics. Now, what do you see as the ideal international text fixture window in the calendar year? So do you prefer, are you aiming to have them scattered throughout the year, or in the middle of the year, or at the end of the year? How do you see it running?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. The more internationals, the better. But you've got to be realistic as well that our professional leagues that supply the large quantity of players for the elite level competition, that if they're utilised during the mid-season of their competition, it tends to corrupt their competition and has commercial impacts on those professional leagues, which overall drains finances from the global bucket of rugby league. So for the elite nations, probably end of year is the most ideal once they're completed, and that the International Rugby League can be the sole focus for rugby league fans, and we can showcase it that way. For other tiered nations, then rugby league's going to continue to occur throughout mid-year and wherever it suits, depending on their geography around the world, wherever it suits local needs. So the mid-year test is more about the impact it has on the two professional leagues, being Super League and the NRL. But with the other countries, then certainly throughout the year, there's no inhibitions or restrictions, and we encourage as much international activity as possible.
Fair point. Your pathway to become chairman of the IRL, was it difficult, and how did you end up in your current position?
Yeah, well, excuse me, I was invited to apply, pardon me, I was invited to apply for one of 3 new independent director positions. The IRL went through a governance review. It was originally just members who were board members of the IRL, so that was the RFL, New Zealand Rugby League and ARLC Commission. They then added representatives from the European Rugby League Confederation and the Asia Pacific Confederation, but they wanted some independence on the board so that nations weren't able to control their own destiny when it would have impacted on other nations. So 3 independents in January 2020 were appointed, and I was very proud to be one of the first 3 and made deputy chairman at that stage. I was in that position for around 14 months or so when Greg Barclay, the chairman, also became chairman of the International Cricket Council, and he had to step down in order to do that role. So he remains on the board as an independent director, and I was elected by the board to replace him as chairman, and have had a pretty hectic ride since I took over about 16 weeks ago. It's been full on without question, and lots of challenges because our majority of our whole tenure has been COVID impacted. We've only had something like 8 weeks as independent directors where there was no COVID impact. So it's been a tough time, but it's been a tough time for lots of sports and in reality, tougher time for individuals, families and communities. So we just have shown agility and got on with the job to fixing up some internal governance issues, making ourselves more relevant, more commercially savvy and more coordinated. And hopefully we'll see the fruits of that labour over the next sort of 24 months and have a successful Rugby League World Cup under our belt and moving very positively to the World Cup in 25 with a wonderful international calendar.
Yeah. What are your plans for the future of the international rugby league? Like, would you like? Oh, you probably already touched on this before, but would you like to see like one-off games played in countries such as India, like between Australia and New Zealand, or Australia and England, etc.?
Yeah, look, without question, that's key to our expansion. We currently have 57 countries who are members of the International Rugby League, and people are shocked when I tell them that that's how many people are members. But there's nearly 70 countries that are actually playing rugby league in one form or another. So to get those countries actually up to standard and having the level of competition to get them to be members of the IRL is certainly a key strategy. But to showcase our game in what we're calling frontier markets, whether it's the UAE or India, potentially China and those places is certainly opportunities that we're considering as part of our calendar. And we're also keen to make sure that the Northern and Southern Hemisphere have competitions within their own patches to create that tribalism and real competitiveness and rivalries between nations in their own area as well. Because that's one of the key features rugby league is built on, is that mate against mate and that rivalry of country versus country or city versus city. So we're certainly looking to utilise those factors in taking our wonderful sport to broader markets.
So you kind of just touched on that with the countries and that. The countries that aren't eligible for the International Rugby League membership thing, what countries would you like to see become a part of that? Well,
we've now got 4 confederations essentially, and they are running their own confederation championships, or what we call regional championships. So there's plenty of scope and opportunity. So Russia, for example, was a World Cup participant just a number of years ago, but has obviously fallen off, and they're starting to come back and on the rise. So through the regional championships, European championships, we hope to see them back at World Cup competition. North America, to get the USA Hawks and the Canadians stronger is key, but like you referenced earlier, the chance to get places like India, the UAE involved in rugby league as well, given their significant populations, and hopefully China are certainly on the horizon, what we're trying to target as well.
Very interesting indeed. So quickly, just back to 2021 Rugby League World Cup. You probably already stated this, but by the sounds of it, it's still scheduled for 2025, and it's not going to be delayed by another year to have the 4-year gap, or is it just going to be like a 3-year gap?
Yeah, no, it's just going to revert to the 3-year gap. So that's part of why the calendar's been held up, is that we're just readjusting the qualification criteria and arrangements to make sure that what we normally have is a 4-year window to qualify, that it's been condensed into 3 years, and how that will work. But no, we're very keen to keep the World Cup at 25 and in France, given that our pitch to have it in France is because they have the Rugby World Cup in 23, the Paris Olympics in 24, and we want the Rugby League World Cup there in 25.
That makes complete sense.
All right, I think that's all the questions we've got answered there.
No problem. Well, thanks for the opportunity, boys. I really appreciate the chance to talk International Rugby League and spread the message and keep everyone up to date with what we're up to. So I really appreciate your passion, enthusiasm and support for the game, and thanks for the opportunity.
It's all right. Mr. Troy Grant, Chairman of the IRL, thank you very much for giving up your time this afternoon and to talk about the game.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Now, we continue your Betfred Super League round 20, 21 and 22 debrief. Yes, it is another one of those weeks. But before we get into the next fortnight of Super League, we've got to start with the rivals round. And we start off Leeds Rhinos beating the Huddersfield Giants 18 points to 12.
It looked like Leeds were in control for the whole match, but Huddersfield somehow almost came back through and beat them.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. And I think the atmosphere around Emerald Headingley would have been electric, because there was one very special man in attendance for this game, and that was, as I mentioned, Leeds legend Rob Burrow. Yeah, it was very, very nice to see him attend this match against, obviously, the rivals of the Rhinos in Huddersfield, and they did it for Rob, as they say. Well, unfortunately, Rob Burrow has been suffering motor neurone disease since 2019, a couple of years after he retired from a illustrious career with the Leeds Rhinos, of course, playing 492 career matches and 8 Super League Grand Final wins. Of course, there was that great gesture of goodwill last year between the Leeds Rhinos and the Bradford Bulls, and really just the whole Super League community in general up that way, to not only have the testimonial match between Leeds and Bradford go ahead, and with Jamie Jones Buchanan, but everyone getting involved, of everyone a part of that great Leeds Rhinos side over the past decade, and goodwill from Sky Sports for actually showing that game in the first place. Well, he's an absolute legend of the Super League comp, and the Rhinos in general, so it was really good to see that and all of that happen as well. Like, he's a legend. Just all the wonderful stories we have heard, especially with his former teammate, Kevin Sinfield, running 7 marathons in 7 days to raise money for charities that, really to fund research into, researching motor neuron disease and potentially even finding a cure. Yes, which I hope happens. And in recent news, they were actually, Emerald Headingley, they actually, with the Leeds Rhinos Club, and I think this is something to do with Gary Heverington, the chief executive, they're now going to immortalise both Rob Burrow and Kevin Sinfield for the work they have done. They're going to immortalise them in bronze at Emerald Headingley Stadium. A very, very nice touching tribute there for both those men. It's a very high honour. I mean, we're all fighting for Rob Burrow. We're all we're all in his corner in this fight. Doesn't matter if you're a Super League supporter or you follow the NRL. All of us can genuinely unite behind one man and his fight against motor neurone disease. Now, getting back to the game, and because of course Rob Burrow was in attendance, and the current crop of Leeds players were going at it against the Huddersfield Giants. Robert Louis, I got to say, since coming back from injury and in the absence of Luke Gale, he's come from nowhere really. One try assist, 66 running meters, and 2 offloads.
He has come from literally nowhere from with all the injuries that have occurred over the season, but he's done a really, really good performance.
As for Huddersfield, I don't know what more. Well, I think a lot can be said about the Huddersfield Giants in 2021. Of course, they unearthed a very promising prospect in Will Price. No denial about that. But goal kicking let the Giants down in this game. I'm sorry to say, it has.
It did, and it could have maybe even won the game. It could have been even a tighter, closer game than what it was. It could have been like a 1-point difference scoreline come down in the match. To who, I don't know. But that might be just because of the pressure of what the game was. It was a rivalry, like a rival game. So I say the pressure might have just got to whoever was kicking for Huddersfield, which I think was...
well, between Harry Newman and Ash Handley, with no Reece Martin, I believe. If he wasn't named in the side, no, he wasn't. So for him to step up, and of course, as I called it, Luke Briscoe to come into the side and Tom Briscoe to shift into the centres is for this occasion. But all in all, I think Leeds are still very much in the hunt with this.
No doubt about that. They're still well in a chance.
Allowing, from close range, I would imagine if Cruz Leeming's gotten a try assist, I can't remember who set up which try exactly, because you watch the highlights one day and you try and remember it for the next, but if you've got, say, if Richie Myler did, or Robert Louis did crash over from close range, you can't afford to do that. Not if you're Huddersfield and not if you're Leeds. Or just plain speaking at all.
No. I think it was... who was it? Yeah, Louis went straight through close range, but yeah, Myler's lead up to the try, that was a bit of a scrappy situation, don't you think?
Well, how scrappy is... Well, what's the definition of scrappy?
Well, it wasn't a perfect lead up work, put it that way. There was a bit of I don't know, ping-pong, and then a bit of a kick through that went to I think a Giants play, which came off him and went back to Leeds and went through, and I think Myler ended up picking up the ball and scoring. So yeah.
So Ash Golding made a meal of it at the back, or maybe one of the wingers, and then Leeds were there to pounce at the right time.
Well, something along those lines, yes.
Oh, that's just another one bites the dust for Ian Watson, given the way Huddersfield have played this year. Leeds, meanwhile, they're still in this.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, speaking of Leeds, they failed to take the ball in the end goal, which allowed Trout to get a try for Huddersfield at the end of the match. Like, that was... I can't remember who it was from Leeds, but they could have easily taken that ball or knocked it dead or taken it over the sideline, knocked it over the touchline. And they wouldn't have allowed that last try in from Huddersfield, but they didn't. Huddersfield got there first.
Yes, just unfortunate. But goal kicking, as I said, it did let the Giants down, and it could have turned the tide of the game in favour of Huddersfield. Now, the grand final rematch, the second time they have met between the Wigan Warriors and St Helens. And Saints absolutely destroyed the Cherry and White, running out 26-2 winners. What was that?
Well, okay, I was expecting St Helens to win, but I wasn't expecting Wigan to only get a penalty goal.
A penalty goal? This was a side on its day that could beat St Helens, actually stand up to them and take the league leader shield from them. But since this was probably the worst performance after that 5-game losing run they went on.
I'd say
Going on
so.
the Warrington where you only scored 2 tries, they let in a total of 26 points all up. 4 tries they let in.
Yeah. Not good enough. And for rival round, that's not looking good. Rival rounds are meant to be close.
Well, as well as close, we also expect the biff. Oh
Yes.
boy, did we get the biff in this one.
Yes, we certainly did.
Oh my god. First Willie Ice and then John Bateman is like, oh yeah, this could spark something here. And spark something it did. Sparked a couple of yellow cards.
Yep. Push equals to shove, and most of the time a yellow card. It's exactly what happened in this case. But you
What we
can't
got? Willie Ice got yellow carded. I mean, he should have been sent off. He was very lucky that he didn't.
Yes.
And then we get John Bateman, yellow carded twice. I mean, this is Cameron Munster in the 2018 grand final level of yellow carding.
I was going to say, is that flashback from something else? But yeah.
And then James Bentley. Well, of course, the excuses for James Bentley have surely run out by now. Considering how long is he back, and how many times has he been yellow carded since coming back?
I think well, I'm not quite sure, but I think nearly every game he's played since he come back.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's now twice within about 3 or 4 games. I mean, that's not good enough if you're getting yellow carded at least once. And of course, Bateman got yellow carded twice. That's just crazy. All right, let's take a
Rival
look
round
here.
is crazy.
Well, I can actually just pull up St. Helens squad, and he'll be there. Yep. All right. So he's made 6 appearances all year, and they don't even bother to mention what in the recent fixtures. Fuck, I was hoping for that. Oh well. I'm pretty sure he was yellow carded against Castleford anyway. Before being yellow carded against Wigan. But
I think so.
All in all, I mean, St. Helens were just absolute class. There's no denial about Saints. Just absolute class about what they do.
And guess who was involved in 2 of the tries?
Lewis Dodd.
Not only that,
Lachlan
Regan
Coote.
Grace.
Lachlan Coote.
Yes, and Regan Grace. He scored himself, then he set up Mark Percival.
Oh yeah, that left edge of St. Helens, and then you get someone like Lewis Dodd who continues to show why he's getting the starting number 7 next year.
A one-on-one strip try, wow. They reviewed it because they might have been not quite sure if there was other defenders on the Wingham player, but no, there wasn't any. Scooped it up, one-on-one stripped it, and went through and scored.
What the hell was Zach Hardacre thinking?
I don't know.
And then, of course, the standout man of the day, of course, probably the key to St. Helens' success, big, bad Alex Walmsley. 1 try, 144 running meters, 5 tackle breaks, and 2 offloads.
And in game number 250.
So that makes it even more special. You win your 250th, you score a try in your 250th, and you beat your arch nemesis in your 250th. Yes. That would have been a happy day for Alex Walmsley.
One that he'll remember for a long time to come, I believe.
Well, one game that we're not going to forget in a hurry. This was literally a nail-biter. Hull FC, I had very much doubted them in going into this game, and I was promptly served with tries. But Hull FC running out 23 to 22. 22 winners over Hull Kingston Rovers in the thriller of a Hull derby. I mean, I got to tell you, they didn't disappoint.
This is what everyone's been waiting for all season long, including myself.
They didn't disappoint at all. I mean, I saw Hull KR fly out of the gates. Just Kindhorst was diving for the corner. That's what I saw. I just saw Kindhorst flying through the air.
Yeah.
And to score.
Defying gravity like all winners do nowadays.
I think everyone defies gravity these days. Just some do it better than others.
True.
But look, this was a real tight affair. Just like, it was so nail-biting. I can remember, I was watching this game in the comfort of my own home, as everyone has to do at this point. I mean, I can't easily fly out over to Manchester and get on a train to East Hull to watch this, or West Hull, beg your pardon, to watch this game. Some of us don't have that luxury at the moment.
Well,
But
no,
I gotta tell you, this game was absolutely crazy. It had everything in this game.
it certainly did. I don't know who would have had hair left by the end of this match, or fingernails in that same
Fingernails.
line as well.
Or even
Like-
beer at this point. I think, and this is what the Sky Sports commentator Barry McDermott was saying, what the greatest crime was of the fans. I think that was close to it. I think with the Hull FC fans, when they hit the lead, they were just wasting beer.
Throwing it around everywhere.
Yeah, throwing it around. It's like, I think he mentioned that as one of his cardinal rules, is wasting all that good beer. But
Well, it's worth
Up until-
celebrating sometimes.
I did say in Hull FC's defence that if Jake Connor played, there would be a better chance. And sure enough, Jake Connor comes up with 2 try assists to help the Black and Whites home, as well as my stand-up for this game, Carlos Tumavave. 1 try assist, 135 running meters, and 6 tackle breaks.
That's a good performance, but I think I haven't got stats to back this up, but Roland Mills he was in pretty much everything that I saw. He finds Ben Crooks to set up a try assist. He scored from an offload and puts in a little grubber to score himself. And he was just here, there, everywhere. I feel, but probably not as much as Tuamavave.
And it's a game of interest, because I was wondering, at 4-all, I was wondering, what the hell is he doing taking a shot at drop goal? I mean, why would you do that when it's locked up at 4-all in the first half?
Well, obviously they must have known what was coming in the second half, and yeah.
Well, they obviously missed the memo, and then of course Mark Sneed, you cannot keep him out of the game for long, and he stood up when it mattered most just to seal the deal for Hull LFC, despite the late challenge from Hull Kingston Rovers. Is with 1 set left, 1 minute. That game could have gone either way. Just the final 5 minutes were absolute thriller.
Yeah, tooth and nail. What really made it happen was when Vede scored the final try of the match.
Albert Vede just said, hey, you know what? We bloody hate you Black and Whites, but it's game on right here. The Robins are coming home.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what we got after the drop goal.
And it was on a set restart too. Just as he scored, a set restart was called. So I don't think they really needed a set restart, but it was this game could have gone off.
It could have gone another way. I bet there was 25,000 Hull supporters. Never mind if you're FC or KR, you would have walked away. I mean, you would have been bitterly disappointed if you lost. But if you won, you'd be thinking, bloody hell, we put in a good performance when it mattered most. Let's see if we can do that again.
Yeah.
And they're both still in the top 6 as well, so that's just even more remarkable that they're still both in the top 6 for now.
4 now, yes. It's a very, that's what a rival match is all about. Close, narrow, and unpredictable.
Yes, unpredictable is definitely a word. Now, something that was less predictable, or well, not as unpredictable, but sort of expected depending who you are. Casper Tigers recording a win against Wakefield Trinity, 23 points to 18, extending a long-standing run for the Castleford side, I think dating back since 2015.
Wow. So, I knew Wakefield were going to be in this match, and I did put on a good performance, and I was hoping they might have won, but they still put in a very, very good performance like they have been as of late.
Yep. Look, I just think Wakefield's right edge did not stand up to the top. That was a sign. And of course, the man that has been in form very much so, since coming back into the side, and that was Greg Eden.
Yet again.
He is just flying at the moment. He's only been back for a couple of weeks, and he's already got like 6 tries to his name at this point.
Well, including 2 in this very match. Yeah, I think he's scored. I think, since he's come back, I think he scored. How long did you say he's back? 3 matches.
Yeah, he hasn't been back long, but he's made a massive influence. And 2 tries, 102 running meters, and 3 tackle breaks.
Yeah. He is on fire at the moment,
He definitely
which is really helping Castleford.
And of course, Ollie Holmes making the most he can of his time at the Jungle before linking up with the Warrington Wolves in 2022, racing out to that 19-6 lead before Wakefield came roaring back into life, but not far enough.
No, I think it was too little too late by then.
Yeah, even with Tom Johnston's try with about 13 minutes to go, you'd have to say it just wasn't enough.
No, but even Lee Kershaw's try. That was a crossfield kick from Mason Leno, touched by a Castleford player, then which ended up finding the hands of Kershaw, and then he ended up going to improve position ever so slightly. But that was a good way to finish the game for Wakefield, even though it wasn't the winning try for it, it was still a good finish though.
It was nice and tight, and that's what you want in the West Yorkshire derby for the Adam Wateni Cup. It's just unfortunate they were unable, Wakefield, to get up over the top of their fellow West Yorkshire, their opponents, and that streak for the Tigers continues to this day.
For now, you never know what's going to happen around the corner.
Yep, 16 games. That's how long they've been going. 6 years and 16 wins in favour of the Castleford Tigers.
Yes. Well, you never know what could happen. I don't think they play each other again for the rest of the season, so who knows what's going to happen next season.
It'll be very interesting next season to see how Lee Radford handles the challenge.
Yes, it will be.
And finally, for round 21, the biggest shock of them all. After 4 months of seeing nothing but red and blow-up scorelines, the Lee Centurions finally registered a win, downing the Salford Red Devils 32-22.
Congratulations to the Lee Centurions. The amount of pain and heartache you guys have been going through all season long. A very, very well-deserved victory.
I was actually surprised that Salford performed so badly in this game.
Well,
I really am.
Same, because I was expecting, we were both expecting Salford to win 13 plus. But Lee not winning in a 1-12 margin, so yeah, no.
And they had to come back as well. They held the lead 14-10 at half time, and it took until Adam Sidlow and the skipper Liam Hood within the final 8 minutes, really, when the scores were just Salford narrowly trailing by 4.
Yes.
The
Salford
final 20 minutes, it belonged to the Lee Centurions. The final 20 minutes belonged to Lee over Salford after Craig Mullen got that penalty goal.
The amount of bloody penalty goals Craig Mullen got in that match was unbelievable.
How many penalties did Salford end up giving away for all those goals, as well as the 4 tries that were scored by the Centurions?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that there was 3 penalty goals in a row. Mullen got 3 in a row. The first one was because of holding too long in the tackle, the second one because of a high shot, and the third one was taken
off the ball.
No, it was taken beyond the horizontal.
Yeah, above that horizontal. We all gonna love that taken above the horizontal line, don't we?
It's dangerous, and it was worthy of penalty. So, and Lee took the points when they got the opportunities, like some other club does over here in Australia, under a certain coach. But anyway,
that we're not going to talk about until we talk the NRL debrief.
Yes.
But look, Adam Sidlow, he's been on a rampage with try scoring as of late. Not for a front rower. This is great. Easy. Another try he adds to his score sheet, 191 running meters, 3 tackle breaks, and 1 offload.
Does that sound familiar? Of a front rower scoring a lot of tries?
It does sound very familiar, but I just can't seem to put my finger on it.
No, I can't either.
Huh. Maybe he's someone whose name begins in A and then surname ends in Y. I don't know.
Don't know.
No, can't think of it. Maybe
No, me neither.
some bloke from maybe from a champion club somewhere. I don't know.
No, somewhere, I don't know.
Some England international maybe.
Yeah,
Couple
maybe.
of grand final wins, best front row in the world. Who knows? Who knows?
No, me neither.
Anyway, round 22. We have got the Wigan Warriors back in action at the DW Stadium against the Leeds Rhinos. And by all the odds, John Bateman has had his contrary conduct charge overturned upon appeal. Whilst Willie Isa serves a month on the sidelines, John Bateman's ban for, quote, foul and abusive language has been overturned.
How is that possible?
I don't know how it is possible that John Bateman will be available, because I think this is one of the reasons why he got yellow carded a second time, was because he was mouthing off against the referee in the derby match against St. Helens. But the fact that he's going to play after the one-match penalty notice for the charge reading under 15.1 Section G, disputes decision of a referee grade A charge, that's crazy.
Yes, very much a crazy thing
And how
indeed.
could the independent tribunal find him not guilty?
I don't know. I haven't heard of that rule ever before in rugby league, and obviously it exists over in the Super League. So, yeah.
Well, I don't know. But regardless, he will be there to face the Leeds Rhinos, who are in pretty good form at the moment. Of course, still no Conrad Hurrell, and there is no Luke Gale available for Richard Agar's side. But you gotta look at the sides in reality, and to see Wigan suffering big time at the moment. Just after that as well. Do you really think that Wigan can take Leeds at this point?
Well, obviously Wigan will be looking to bounce back after a humiliation in the derby, you could say. It wasn't like 26-2 in a derby. That is not on. So they will be looking to bounce back. But Leeds are in a better spot at the moment. So, I mean, Wigan could turn things
right
around.
edge is so fragile at the moment, especially with Harry Newman getting more game time and getting better, mind you, getting better as he plays more games.
Yeah, a lot of players do get better as they have more games.
Look, this is going to be another absolute humiliation for the Wigan Warriors, and I don't know if this could spell Adrian Land's fate, but I'm going to say, Leeds win this in the 1-12. I think they'll come up with another win here.
I agree. Adrian Land would not get the sack because of this. I'm saying that now. But I'm going to say Leeds to win 13+.
You think another blowout scoreline against the Warriors?
Not massively, but not in the 13+ bracket.
Oh, of course. Now, we have Salford hosting the Catalan Dragons. And coming up, of course. Catalan still flying high at the top of the table and continuing to give opportunities to the likes of Mathieu Laguerre, Corentin Lecam, and Cesar Rouge, and the Spanish/French winger Romain Franco.
Well, considering Catalans didn't get to play against Warrington in the finals match, in the rivals
because that match was postponed, unfortunately, due to positive cases in Catalan's essential squad.
Yes.
Or essential staff, I should say.
Yes. But Catalans, the rate they've been going this season, it's... What more could you say of how well Catalan have been going well this season?
I don't know. I honestly don't think you can. They have been
flying high.
If they can maintain this and get to Old Trafford, there could be a new name on that Super League trophy.
Yes. And considering... I mean, Salford did put on
They lost to the
Okay-ish.
last place side. You lost to the team in 12th that's going to get relegated.
They put
There's
in
no
an
sugarcoating it.
they put an okay-ish performance in.
Okay-ish.
I know they lost to
It's going to be a
the.
Catalan 13+ win. I know we're trying to blow smoke up about how Lee not being bad all year, trying to make them feel better because they hadn't got a win until now. And then it's not the same thing with Salford. They've had opportunities. They screwed up. And they just haven't played well all year.
Salford played an okay-ish game against Lee, but with their poor defence and discipline, it's definitely not going to help if that carries over against Catalan's game. Catalan's to win 13+.
So we both agree that the Dragons will absolutely slaughter Salford.
Yes! Even myself as a Salford supporter.
Right, now we got Hull KR hosting Wakefield at Hull College Craven Park. Hull KR coming off the narrow derby loss to FC. Hey, but I think there's still a lot of promise in the Robins performance.
There definitely is. And I still don't know how that game was that close. Like, seriously.
Well, the good news is Mikey Lewis is back in the squad for Tony Smith, so that'll take a lot of pressure off Rowan Mills.
Yes.
As it currently stands, and also offers up Brad Takarangi to another position. Maybe, I don't know, the one he was assigned when he was handed the number 11 shirt.
Well, you never know what's going to happen.
But, I mean, Brad Takarangi has done a good job for Hull KR now that he's finally got on fit and available.
Yes, he certainly has. Even what he did in a whole derby was really good performance.
Definitely was. And of course, Tom Johnston, you can't keep Tom Johnston out of the game for Wakefield. He's just too good.
Yes, he is. He's been really in form lately. Keeps finding the try line, which is what they need in the side. It's going to be a tough one to choose to an extent, though. Like, Wakefield have been going reasonable.
Wakefield have been a bit too hot and cold for me. I mean, yeah, I know they did down Warrington, and then they were raced out to a 3-try-0 lead, and that is pretty impressive against Warrington. But at other times, they've had their asses handed to them, including the likes of Wigan when they were at their better at a point in time.
That's a very good point there. I'm going to say Hull KR 1-12.
Yeah, I think the Robins will come up 1-12 winners here in this field as well. Now, down at the John Smith Stadium, we've got the Huddersfield Giants at home to the Warrington Wolves. Was, of course, Warrington unable to play because of Catalan's COVID situation with the essential staff. So now they'll line up against Ian Watson's side, as we've talked about, going down to the Leeds Rhinos, and they're coming up against the real ill-informed Warrington side.
Yeah, look, with that extra week off, it'll probably actually help Warrington for the run to the finals, I believe.
Well, they're still going to face Catalan and St Helens within the final run home.
But, given...
Oh, well, they don't have to face Catalan anymore until that fixture gets rearranged. So now, their main target is, in fact, St Helens.
Yeah, so having that extra... Also, the Catalan's game against Warrington will get rescheduled. But having that extra week off, whereas Huddersfield may or may not, depending on the COVID situation over there, this might benefit Warrington for a run home. The players will be fresher for that stretch home. So this could easily be a blowout score.
Oh, it definitely could be a blowout score. And that Warrington left edge, you got to defend against it. Considering you got the weaponry of Tom Lynham and Toby King, as well as Ben Curry, who's a very skilled second rower, and the threat of George Williams as well, who can easily just dummy and take off at the speed he possesses. You need to be on to try and shut them down. Otherwise, you'll be left in the dust. I think Warrington run away with this 13+.
Yeah, you need to shut them down early on and quickly. As early as possible and very quickly, otherwise it's going to be a blowout score, which I don't think Huddersfield are going to be able to do. Warrington 13+.
And the final two results of round 21, we have Hull FC playing host to the Castleford Tigers at the MKM Stadium on the west side of Hull, if I correct the record on that. Both are coming off a very good win in their respected rivals round matches.
I've just lost the fixture. Hull FC Castleford. Yeah, look, who knows what's going to happen with that one. Obviously, Hull FC, well, like you said, it both come off victories. Exactly the same points as of 23 each.
Not to mention, Castleford have won 3 of the last 5 fixtures, whereas Hull FC have only got 1 win in the final 5.
True, but you have to look at who's got the better side on paper at the moment, and I believe that is Hull FC. But
the way I look at it is, I have seen this Castleford side absolutely flying, whether they were running 4th in 2018 or they were top of the table or in 2017. One thing has been paramount and very clear to everyone. They just don't like playing against Hull FC, whether it's at the Jungle or here in Hull, or they're in Hull, I should say. We're not in Hull.
No.
Please don't come after us, Border Force. But no, to my point, Hull FC is the Castleford Tigers bogey side. Every time you think, oh yeah, Castleford can do it, nope. Hull FC have just come from nowhere and just said, oh yeah, nice win streak. It'd be a pity if one of your bogey sides came wrong and ruined it. And then Hull go along and ruin Castleford's win streak.
Well, yes. But the other thing, Castleford knocked off St. Helens earlier on, not that long ago.
True.
Which is a top side. I think Hull FC are ahead of Castleford on the current table. So, and they've got that momentum. Well, no, Hull FC got the momentum
Hull
too.
are running 6th, Hull FC are running 6th, and Castleford are running 8th. So there's a lot of stake here.
So, if Castleford managed to knock off St. Helens a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to say it, I believe Castleford can knock off Hull FC.
So you're going to go with the Tigers on this one?
In a 1-12 margin.
Brave man. Very brave man. I'm going the other way. I'm sticking with the home side, Hull FC, to run out 1-12 winners. Now, final game of round 21 has St. Helens playing host to the Lee Centurions. Of course, still missing Tommy Makinson for this clash after suspension against Castleford. But even with Lee coming off the confidence of a win, they need to win the middle of the field if they're a chance of standing up against the reigning champions.
Well, very much like the Huddersfield Warrington game. If Lee can shut down St. Helens' key men early and quickly, then they'll be within a shout. But if they can't, well, it's going to run away.
And they also got to look at Jack Wellesby on that right edge. Even without Tommy Makinson, Jack Wellesby has proven to be a very capable force out on that. And of course, the St. Helens left edge of Mark Percival, Regan Grace, and Johnny Lomax all scheming down that left channel. So for Lee, their right edge needs to stand up to that, and they need to take on Alex Walmsley in the middle of the field. If they can match him pound for pound, or even force him to make 60 tackles and blunt his effectiveness in the middle of the field, then Lee can also very interesting clash here. Apart from that, I think St. Helens run away with this 13 to plus.
Completely agree. St. Helens 13 plus. There's, like you said, unless I know Lee just come off a victory, but there won't be enough for St. Helens to beat St. Helens. Sorry.
And as is the case in previously with round 22, as in with other rounds, we won't know the result. Also, we don't know who's going to be playing in these six fixtures here until the round 21 results have been locked in. So these, again, are very, very early tips, and they are not all indicative of who will be playing in that side, apart from Tommy Makinson. We will definitely know Makinson will be back for the clash against Warrington. Meantime, Salford at home to Hull FC. Which way are you swinging this one? Loyalty of red and black, red, black and white, or to the black and whites?
Well, Hull FC do have the more momentum than what Salford did. Well, who knows if Salford could play at this ground ever again? We never know. So that'll be treating every game as its last game with AJ Bell. I'd say Hull FC would be too good. Hull FC in a 1 to 12 margin.
All right, well, I'm going to say Hull FC win this game, 13 plus. Meanwhile, in West Yorkshire, in speaking of the West Yorkshire derby, Wakefield will be hosting the Leeds Rhinos at the Mobile Rocket Stadium. Still, of course, they'll still be without Luke Gale and Conrad Hurrell, and of course, there is reports going around at the moment that suggest that Conrad Hurrell has signed for St Helens.
Very interesting signing there, if it's true.
And of course, there has been many whispers about Luke Gale, especially with the announcements of Blake Austin and Aidan Caesar coming to the club in 2022. Where does he stand there? Who knows? And of course, Reece Martin is probably the last of Richard Agar's main concerns for next year. As for Willie Poaching side, they did not handle Castleford very well at all. So I have no confidence in them that they can take on this Leeds Rhino side, albeit without Mikolaj Oledzki, who probably hasn't been in the side for a couple of weeks. But I think Leeds will be very much too strong for this Wakefield side, and I think they'll run out 13-plus winners here.
I'm going to go the opposite way. I reckon Wakefield are going to win this one in a close one, in a 1 to 12 margin. It's a flip of a coin, this one, really, I believe.
Flip of a coin, you're saying? All right.
I'd say
how
so.
That one pans out.
But I went Wakefield 1 to 12, so yeah.
Now, Castleford Tigers will be back in action again, and they'll be playing host to the Wigan Warriors at the Jungle. Oh, of course, Castleford will have that game televised live on Sky Sports after the one against Hull FC, so they'll get 2 games in 2 days, in a space of a couple of days, really.
Yes.
From Friday to Tuesday. Look, I think Castleford, depending on how they perform against Hull FC, I mean, they're still pretty much in the race for the top 6, and Wigan are very much still under pressure from the 2 Hull sides and Leeds. So I don't know how they're going to respond when they face the Rhinos, but I think Wigan sneak home 1 to 12 winners over the Tigers.
I'm going the opposite way to you. Castleford have Wigan are in a bit of a poor form patch at the moment. Like, they've been a bit inconsistent all year. I know Castleford have been as well, but depending on how they go against Hull FC the week prior or a couple of days earlier, that winning streak, I believe, will continue by the time they come to meeting Wigan. So I'm going to say Castleford 1 to 12.
All right, another upset for you there. Let's see how they actually pay off. Now we've got the Catalan Dragons back home in France against the Leeds Centurions. Of course, we took, as was touched on in an interview with the IRL chairman, Troy Grant. I mean, French Rugby League is back on the rise again. Of course, you've got Catalan, top of the table. Practically the best side all year, I'd actually have to say. As a recently converted St Helens fan over the last couple of years, from Justin Holbrook's tenure till now.
No, I completely agree.
And of course, with the likes of Mathieu Laguerre, Corentin Lecam, I think if we see more of Lecam, as well as we know and we have seen the potential that Mathieu Laguerre has, and of course Arthur Morgue. No one can get enough of Arthur Morgue. And then of course we've got the likes of César Rouge, Jordan Desiree, and Romain Franco. And of course the potential of the 2025 Rugby League World Cup to be played after the 2023 Rugby World Cup and the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. There is going to be a lot of buzz in France at this point. Right? And up against the last place Centurions, this is going to be another Catalan 13-plus victory.
Well, not only with the buzz with the Rugby World Cup in 23, the Olympics in 24, and the Rugby League World Cup in 2025, Catalan has been on top this season, and in their championship, Toulouse have been on top. So,
and there's a lot of, and it is probably most likely out of all top 6 championship sides, Toulouse would have the strongest bill to try and get into Super League for 2022.
So, with the rate the French side are going at the moment in both the Championship and the Super League, and what's coming ahead in this country of France, Catalans will win 13 plus. They're building to something very, very big in France.
They definitely are. France is coming back. France will be back as a rugby league powerhouse. Now,
Yes.
Huddersfield will play host to Hull Kingston Rovers at the John Smith Stadium, so they'll get back-to-back home games against two high-quality contenders, and they're going to get absolutely destroyed on both fronts. I think Hull KR run out 13 to plus. I think Ryan Hall, he's had a good year so far since coming back from ACL reconstruction and not getting a proper run in at the Roosters. And this race for the top try scorer, he's still on top at the moment, but he's got Adam Swift breathing down his neck from the other side of the city. So I think Hull KR ran out 13 to plus winners here. I think that left edge of the Robins as well. I know we keep going on about left edges, but that's where most of the sides really attack. All the best strike weapons and players, they attack down their left-hand side.
That is very, very true. And the stats show, the results show, the try scoring stats show. Yeah, I'm going to say Hull KR 13 plus. Huddersfield will put up a small fight, but not a very, very big one.
Not enough. And finally, and this is going to be malfortune, the Warrington Wolves up against St Helens.
Yes, the match of round 22. Right here.
Well, this is Saturday, because we've got to remember, Warrington held the champions tryless the last time they met at the Totally Wicked Stadium.
That is
And this
true.
will be George Williams' first home match of the year since he joined Warrington.
That's also very true.
So there's going to be a lot of buzz around George Williams finally being unveiled at home in front of probably a packed out Halliwell Jones Stadium.
Yeah, well, look, if St Helens will be trying to bounce back and get revenge on Warrington after they got beaten on their own home turf earlier this season, so they'll be definitely looking to get revenge back. But, like you said, George Williams, hopefully making his...
He changes the complexion of how this game is going to be played.
Exactly. Like,
He wasn't there when they met earlier in the year, when they won 6-2. He wasn't.
no, he wasn't. And like I said, being unveiled in front of the home fans for the first time since joining Warrington, it's a mouth-watering clash. It's a very, very tough one to pick.
And I'm going to make a mouth-watering statement right here. I believe, thanks to the influence of George Williams, Warrington will run out over the champions. They will run out 1-12 victors.
Well, you read my mind. I am going Warrington as well in a 1-12 margin as well. To beat the reigning champions twice in a season.
It's going to be a mouth-watering crash. Even if we're wrong, it's still worth the watch.
Oh,
All
no
right, well,
doubt.
that's your Betfred Super League round 20, 21 and 22 debrief for the week. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with all your NRL action ahead of we're only 2 weeks out from the finals. Can you believe that?
Well,
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.